Welcome back. As you can see, we now have a bigger room with space for the new machinery. But that's not all. We also have piston boots that will allow us to sprint faster and jump higher. And we now have 8 bricked blast furnaces that will make 8 times more pollution. It is now getting foggy in here, but with that steel, we can now start working on the first tier of electric machinery. The other thing we need is to use our upgraded workshop to produce some circuits. And we shouldn't have made such a big batch without electric machines. Next we shall also batch craft some motors and other parts. With all these parts, we can make our first 3 electric machines, an assembler, a bending machine and a wire mill. And the first thing we want to do now is to assemble a quick and dirty portal generator, which we have to throw in a pond of water to create a portal to access the Twilight Forest dimension. And the reason why we came here is to locate a vein of silver and lead, which ended up being right next to the spawn. We quickly gather and process some silver to make some new high-pressure solar boilers. From the same vein we also got some lead which is needed for making boat-in pipes. And now we can start arranging our solar power generation that will soon surpass any kind of boiler. With all that steam we can now power electric machines to start working materials with a better yield. And while these are working, we can also increase the yield of our hammer by adding some lapis lazuli. We now get about twice the amount of minerals. To carry all of these, we are going to use some forestry backpacks. We also have a void filter for cobblestone and a magnet for easier collection. Mining minerals has never been that easy and fun. And finding veins is also no longer an issue with our new prospector. Meanwhile, our machine stack has been increasing and we should now slightly rearrange them in a better way. But first we shall also increase the capacity of our steam buffer. We shall have a maximum size iron tank, which holds as much as 2.5 super tanks. And we shall also increase our steam production. We now have 32 high-pressure solar boilers that will make 9 LV amps for free. As for the machines, we shall have a setup that will centrifuge slime balls to extract glue and raw rubber. The glue will be used for many kinds of recipes, while the raw rubber is vulcanized in a chemical reactor with sulfur. And then moved to an assembler dedicated to covering wires with rubber for making insulated cables. And on the front we shall have a couple of bending machines and a couple of wire mills. While these machines are dedicated to specific recipes on their own power line, we shall also have a second power cable for machines that will be more general purpose. However, making so many machines made us run out of steel and our bricked blast furnaces are making more pollution than steel. So we shall make some room for a couple of electric blast furnaces. These can make steel in 5 seconds instead of 6 minutes. But these furnaces has some extra things to worry about. The first one is that they need maintenance. And that can be easily fixed by clicking on the maintenance hatch with a toolbox properly equipped. Also, these blast furnaces use a lot of power. They need 4 steam turbines each one to work properly. The last thing is that we are going to need some oxygen in order to make steel with these. And if we want to run efficiently, we also need to raw the iron before blasting it. Thus we shall have 3 tanks where we will be storing hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen for the various kind of metals that we will be working. And in the basement, behind some spaghetti pipes, we shall have the electrolysis system that makes the oxygen. And now, with our new arc furnace, we shall make some wrought iron, then we turn it into dust so that we can finally blast it into steel. And here we have our first electrically cooked steel. But that's just one of the many things these furnaces can do. The next one we shall make is aluminium, which is also the metal for the tier 2 machines. But aluminium alone won't be enough. We also need tier 2 circuits, which require diodes. And to make diodes we need gallium and arsenic. We can get gallium by electrolyzing sphalerite. And the arsenic can be extracted from cobaltite. However, we are currently running out of oxygen. An easy way to fill up our tank is to electrolyze some cassiterite sand. That is way faster than water. Now that we have oxygen, we can extract some arsenic oxide from the cobaltite, which we can then turn into arsenic. Finally, we melt it with gallium to make a crystal, which we can work into diodes. Using these, we can merge 3 Tier 1 circuits into a single Tier 2 circuit. But the first machine we shall craft using these will still be a Tier 1 machine, a circuit assembler. With that, it will take one less low-tier circuit for each good circuit. And now it is finally time to start doing something of the second tier. The first thing we will want is an electrolyzer. That improved machine can extract alumina from clay, giving us a lot of aluminium. The next machine we want is the extruder. That one can make 2 rods from 1 ingots and cut out a lot of microcrafting by doing stuff such as rotors directly from ingots. And it will also allow us to make thinkers construct higher tier parts. However, that can take a lot of time. While we wait, we can go play some Minesweeper. And we shall also use the time to set up an ore farm. For now, we shall cultivate gold and experience, since we are going to need these soon. And now that our mining hammer is ready, we can go mine a mountain of clay. By electrolyzing all that clay, other than alumina, we also get some lithium and silicon dioxide. While the lithium is good enough for batteries, we want to refine the silicon. To do so, we shall use some magnesium to rip off the oxygen from the silicon. That will give us some raw silicon and some magnesia that we will turn back into pure magnesium with an electrolyzer. That process will also give us a lot of free oxygen. Going back to the raw silicon, we want to further purify it. To do so, we react it with chlorine into silicon tetrachloride, which we react with sodium to get solar-grade silicon in some salt byproduct that can be recycled into the sodium and chlorine used earlier on the chain. And this is the finished setup to turn silicon dioxide into solar-grade silicon. And now, with that, the aluminium and the rest of the workshop, we are using quite a lot of power. Thus, we shall craft some more solar boilers, reaching now the equivalent production of 1 HV amp of power. However, we should also have a second source of power, such as oil. To collect it, we shall use a pump, powered by a semi-fluid generator that will burn the raw oil we have in place. Once powered, the pump will start moving the oil into its generator and we can use a long-distance pipeline to move the rest to our base. On the other side of the pipeline, we shall have a distillery that will extract light fuel from the oil. However, that still contains traces of sulfur which we can remove with the help of some hydrogen in a chemical reactor. That will leave us with some hydrogen sulfide that we will deal with later on. And we shall apply a steam cracking process to the light fuel that will let us distill some ethylene from it. We also get some tiny piles of carbon which we can merge and stock up. Finally, with the help of some oxygen, we can make polyethylene. And with the hydrogen sulfide we had left behind, we can make some sulfuric acid. And with that setup we now have the materials for the next tier of circuit that will get us one step closer to our next source of power, nuclear reactors. Yeah, that's why we needed oil to have more energy. Did you think we were going to use it as a fuel? The pollution from the old blast furnaces just managed to dissipate. Let's not burn fossil fuels now. We shall instead melt silicon with gallium arsenide, which takes more time, energy and pollutes even more. We take the so-made bull and cut it into wafers, which we will then use to engrave various kinds of integrated circuits with a precision laser. With this new silicon ware and the help of our circuit assembler, we can assemble, layer after layer of electronic parts, a good integrated circuit. However, to reach the last stage of this technology, we need a layer with transistors. But to make these we need our EBF to reach higher temperatures. And to do that, We need Cantle, a metal which requires a higher energy input to be melted. So we start by upgrading the power intake of one of our EBFs. Canthal is an alloy of iron, aluminium and chrome. To get the chrome, we can work some rubies with hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. However, working such materials is putting our power generation under huge strain, so, you know the drill. And with that, we now have 128 high-pressure solar boilers, for a total of 46,000 steam per second, or 1,100 EU per tick. Which is making our buffer look kinda small from the speed at which it fills up now. Anyways, cooking all that Canthal is going to take a lot of time, so let's see what we can do while we wait. And the first thing we shall do is notice that the ingots we are producing are still white hot and we have to find a way of cooling them. To do that, we can use some coolant. And when we start baling the hot ingots in it, we find out that this stuff takes more time to temper it than it takes to melt it. And this process will leave us with hot coolant. To cool that down, we can make it flow in a pipe with a vent next to some water. During this long wait, we can go do some mining. And when we come back, we find a window on our roof. This was caused by a solar boiler exploding. It caused more pollution than a diesel engine would have, and we now have to keep in hazmat suit for a little bit. One other thing we can do with the other blast furnace is some vanadium steel. This makes tools with almost 10 times the durability of iron. Next we can make an automation line for TNT. And we can also make all the required materials to get a builder's wand, which can help us build more solar boilers. Meanwhile, our Canthal is now ready and we can finally upgrade our EBF coils, allowing us to finally cook silicon. After cooling it down and bending it into plates, we can use that to make transistors, which will finally allow us to make the last step for a circuit of the third tier, HV. But circuits aren't enough to enter the next tier. We also need some stainless steel, which we can easily make with a mixer and an EBF. And that metal doesn't even require to be cooled down. And with that we can now open the next page of our quest book. After swiftly making the bare minimum components, we quickly make the first two machines we will want from HV, a macerator and a bending machine. Since the HV steam turbine has a low efficiency and also requires more steam than a huge boat in pipe can carry, we shall power these machines out of the MV line with the help of batteries to buffer energy. The HV macerator, unlike its lower tier variants, can give bonus byproducts. Meanwhile, the HV bending machine can be used to make tin cans. We can fill these with any food and battery residue of the canning machine to finally have one nice, filling meal for once. And now we are at the point of the game where things will slightly change, so I think it is time to close this episode. Bye bye.